Hello and welcome once again to New Thought Talk. I am the Reverend Steve Walling from the Madera Spiritual Awareness Center. I want to welcome you to our show today. I've got some incredible guests, people that are near and dear to my heart. And as we always start the show, I want to share with you that there really is a presence and a power for good in the universe, and it is available to you. And many years ago, Ernest Holmes wrote in a little book called Creative Mind, he wrote this. He says, "We have within us a power that is greater than anything that we shall ever contact in the outer. A power that can overcome every obstacle in our life and set us safe, satisfied, and at peace, healed and prosperous in a new light and in a new life. Mind, all mind is right here. It is God's mind, God's creative power, God's creative life. We have as much of this power to use in our daily life as we can believe in and embody. The storehouse of nature is filled with abundant good, awaiting the touch of our awakened thought to spring forth into manifestation in our life. But the awakening must be on our part and not on the side of life. We stand at the gateway of limitless opportunity and in eternal and changeless now. Now is the day in which we to begin a new life, and that life is up to us to have a greater expression of all that is wonderful. The word that we speak is the law of our life, and nothing hinders us but ourselves. We have, through ignorance of our real nature, misused this power of our word, and behold what it has done to us. It has brought upon us the very thing that we have feared. But now it shall produce a new thing, a new heaven, a new earth, by creating a new thought, and that's what we're here to share today. And so today, as we start our show, I want to share with you, it's been a little over 2 years ago, I first appeared at the Spiritual Awareness Center located in Madera, and the ministers at that time were the Reverend Dr. James and Reverend Dr. Joanna Fox. I had met them once before at the Emerson Institute, but coming to their center was a wonderful experience, and it ended up that I was called, they asked, and we became a unit at the center, creating a spiritual home for many people. And so this morning, it is my pleasure to have as my guests the Reverends Dr. James Fox and Reverend Dr. Joanna Fox. Welcome to the show, folks. And it's been a great journey this last couple of years, being able to experience with you two this great philosophy, to share it with a congregation and a church that you two have spent so much time creating. But like with all my guests, what I want to do this morning is take a moment, and Jim and Joanna, I want you to tell me, how was it that you found New Thought Religious Science? What was your story? How did you come about this thing?
Well, I was in a business with a partner in Fresno, and we were training these 12 to 16-year-old kids for the Easter Seal Society to go around and we sold products to raise money. But anyway, that business started going down the tubes, and a lot of investment. And it bothered me, and I talked to him, my partner, about it, and he said, you live in Madera, and he said, there's a little church down on Howard Road that you ought to go down and take a look at. So anyway, it was Reverend Marcia Pierce. Mm-hmm. And it was my first experience with science of mind. And after we got in the church, she was about 10 minutes into her daily talk or her Sunday talk, and I thought, wow, this is what I've been looking for. I got a little laryngitis, so bear with me.
Sure, you betcha.
But anyway, we attended the next Sunday and the following Sunday, and then since then we took all the classes. We went to the conferences at the Silmar, and we haven't looked back, because to me, it's really not a religion, it's a way of life. And people that allow this indwelling presence to guide in their daily activities, they'll find that their life becomes more of a joy, see more peace, and there definitely is going to be more harmony with everyone they contact.
Boy, isn't that the truth?
And it's the way it works, and that's the way it has worked now for, what,
25 years.
25 years.
25 years.
25 years.
Now, there's something significant about 20-something years, because I happen to know, and I will share with our audience, that it's just been a couple days have passed since we had a 23rd wedding anniversary. So you both came to the philosophy before you came to the marriage altar, huh?
Right, yes.
Very good.
It was she was living in Fresno, and I would go down on Sunday morning and pick her up, and we'd show up at the church on Howard Road, and it just grew from there. And the conference at Silomar was 2 weeks long, and we attended 3 or 4 of the conferences each year after. And I got to know more of the New Thought ministers, religious science ministers, and listen to them talk and tell their experiences and about people in their congregation, how they got help when they opened up to accept this philosophy and make it part of their life. And it just unfolded for us exactly the way they explained that it would.
Well, that's a powerful statement, Jim.
Yes.
But you know, you having a little bit of inside information always helps, but we have the Reverend Dr. Joanna Fox here, and I know for a fact that as she got into the philosophy, that she took it all the way to her ministerial credential sometime ahead of you, didn't she? You care to tell us about it, Joanna?
When Jim and I both walked into that church, as he was talking about, we immediately knew that was exactly what it was right for us. I knew it for myself, and he knew it for himself. And so, again, going to the church, listening to Reverend Marcia, in about a month or so after we started, I started taking classes. Jim and I both took classes and learned about this philosophy and learned about how we can change the way our life is going by changing our thinking. And religious science talks about change your thinking, change your life. And our lives started changing a little bit at a time. Each class, each talk, each experience, we started proving to ourselves, yes, you can trust the universe, you can trust God or spirit, whatever you wish to call this creative force that I call God. Some people call it the creative force of the universe or source energy, whatever it may be. But taking that journey has been absolutely marvelous. We find by using what religious science and New Thought teaches, you find out that your life does change, and that the experiences you have keep getting better and better. And when something comes up that isn't so great, you know how to make a change by looking at it and talking to Spirit and knowing that within yourself there is a power greater than you are that brings about this change.
And then there's this little thing that we call affirmative prayer that seems to play a not too small role in our consciousness and in our thoughts. So, Joanna, you took classes, and I know that you actually started working as a volunteer for the Reverend Marcia at the center. And what made you decide to become a minister?
to see all the things that I was proving to myself how great this works, and I wanted to show other people that they can change their lives and have a better quality of life, and really and trust that inner power to guide them and direct them. And so I got very passionate. I became very passionate about this teaching. I still am, 25 years, and it's just been absolutely marvelous. And we talked about retiring. I have semi-retired. Jim has semi-retired. We can't stop using the principles and showing other people. So my main objective of wanting to become a minister, first it was a practitioner. I was going to be a practitioner and help others through affirmative prayer, through working with them. But then all of a sudden, Spirit talked to me and said, you want to go further. And I did. And then Jim followed behind. He took every class with me. In the beginning, it was to support me. Then all of a sudden, he had the calling. He wanted to be a practitioner. And then all of a sudden, Dr. Angelo Pizzello from the Emerson Institute and the Positive Center up in Oakers talked to Jim and said, you know, you would make a wonderful minister. And he talked him into it, and that was a great thing too.
Jim, how long ago was it that you became a minister?
It was 2000.
So, okay, it's been about 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh, that's
Yes.
and I can speak very confidently and with a lot of heart to the effect that Reverend Jim has had on his spiritual community. I mean, they are semi-retired, but they support me in the center to a very great degree, and it's very common to find Sunday morning. Jim has a place that he sits before the celebration and afterwards, and it's very common to find someone sitting down in very deep discussion with Jim about some nuance or some principle or something about Science of Mind, New Thought, and the wisdom that he imparts, that he shares, is it's pretty powerful. And in the next segment we've got coming up here, I'm going to talk about how he has shared this wisdom through not only the center but the people of Madera. Every Friday in the Madera Tribune you can find a article that is authored by the Reverend Jim. It's an essay that is based in New Thought principles. And so we're going to go to a break, and when we come back we're going to talk about how that evolved and what came out of it. We'll see you on the other side. Well, welcome back to New Thought Talk. I am the Reverend Steve Walling, and my guests today are the Reverends Dr. James and Joanna Fox. And when we went to the break, we were talking about Reverend Jim's doing articles in the local Madera Tribune newspaper. Jim, I want you to tell me about how that came about and what's that evolved into. That's quite a story that impacts not only all of Madera, but now it reaches people throughout the world. So tell us about it.
Well, in this teaching, we do talk about the divine synchronicity of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
It works in anyone's life, whether they are familiar with religious science or not.
Yeah.
It does work in their life. Well, I started writing short articles for our monthly newsletter at the church. And then after about a year and a half, we were facilitating a class, and Annette from the Madera Tribune was one of the participants in the class, and she got to look at some of these articles. She said, wow, you know, these ought to go in weekly paper. These ought to be published weekly in the... And I said, well, if you want to do something with them, go ahead. I had about 18 of them that I'd accumulated because I saved them all. And she took them over to the Tribune, and each week she would put one in the paper. And that went on until she run out of articles, and then she got on to me about, you ought to write one a week where I can put it in the paper. And I said, no, I'm not a writer. And, oh, yes, you are. Oh, yes. And then I started writing an article a week, and she would see that it got in the paper. So then it wasn't long after that until a lot of the people in our congregation was reading these articles a week, and they said, you know, it would be great if you were to put these together in a book. I don't know anything about a book. What are you talking about? I'm a burned out mechanic with heavy equipment. You know, I don't know anything about a book, how to put it together or anything. And so it went on for a while, and we had our peace prayer, world peace prayer at 4 o'clock in the morning at the center, December 31st. And there was about 6 people showed up at 4 o'clock in the morning at the center for this world peace prayer. And then after it was over with, we had coffee and a continental breakfast in the kitchen part of the church. And then the following Sunday, 2 of them came back to church. And then the next Sunday they come back, and the next Sunday they come back. And finally, I don't get nosy with people, but I do like to know what they do if I'm going to be associated with them. So I asked this one fellow, John Peterson. I said, what kind of work do you do?
And what does he do?
Well, he said, I'm a book publisher.
Oh, surprise, surprise.
So I talk about the divine synchronicity of the universe. God puts together what is needed to get any kind of a project forward.
Yeah.
When it's for the benefit of people. And when he said he was a book publisher, I thought, wow.
Yes.
Thank you, God.
Thank you, God. And so, after about 4 years of writing articles for the newspaper, you had a collection of articles. And actually, how I first met you, I don't know if you, and we didn't discuss this ahead of time, but I first met them at the Emerson Institute. They had brought some of the articles up to Angelo Pizzello, Angie, and they wanted him to review him for the potential of writing an endorsement for the book. And I happened to be there that day. I was doing some studies, and they came in, and I met this wonderful couple, and I actually read a lot of the stories that you had left with Angie, and we talked about them. And so when I ultimately ended up down at the center, we'd had previously met.
Yes.
And by the time I got down the center, this book right here, it's entitled, And So It Is, Essays on the Spiritual Life by the Reverend James Fox, happened to be in our bookstore. And we carry this in our bookstore. You can also get it. There is a link that's listed on the bottom part of the screen there, which is www.poetmatrixpress.com. That is John Peterson's publishing company. John is still in our congregation. He's just been a wonderful addition to the congregation.
Yes.
He's supported us and put this philosophy to work in his life. It's been very good. But I got to tell you, I've read every story in this book, and you know, Reverend Jim, his background, he comes from that part of the country where people, I'm going to use the colloquialism, are a little more folksy, and he writes his articles in a little more of a folksy way. But I've got to tell you, if you are looking for something to uplift you, when you have that time in your life that maybe you feel like if I just had a little something extra to carry me over, go to the book. There's an article in there, there's a story in there, and it will touch your heart and it will uplift your consciousness. And it's been a wonderful experience having been able to share this with you, to share it at the center. And I have to say, I've actually taken some of his stories and used them in my Sunday lessons. And you know, I'm going to shamelessly promote the book right here, right now, because it is good. You can purchase it, again, through poetmatrix.com, express.com, or you can purchase it through the Madera Spiritual Awareness Center, our bookstore. You can call us. We have a PayPal link, and we could set it up where you can make a payment for the book, and you can, for a small fee, have it shipped to you. And the price on the book is, and that I don't have in front of me. How much is it?
$17.
$17 plus California state tax and shipping, and it's all yours. So it is. It's been a wonderful story. It's been great. And the people of Madera, you know, talking about how New Thought reaches out in so many different ways. Every Friday, one of your articles comes out in the Madera Tribune.
Right.
And I know that you've experienced this, and Joanna, I know you've experienced it. We get calls from people all the time that story has touched them, that whatever the story is on that particular week has touched them or their family in a personal way. And Jim, I want to thank you for taking the time and the effort for putting it together, because it is a great book. It's a good read, and it's very inspirational.
You know, one of the things I want to say about this book is that every time Jim goes to the town of Madera, to one of the stores, wherever he's going, people come up to, I know you, oh, and they'll tell him about how a particular article in the book touched them, inspired them, helped them. They may not be coming to the center, but they are reading those articles, and their lives are changing by something coming to them from the article.
Well, you know, it's really, this teaching is, we teach by example.
Mm-hmm.
And if you live a good life, people notice that. If the good things happen in your life, people notice that, and they ask, you know, well, what do you do? What brought all this about and everything? And it's all boils down to one thing, and that's the way you think. You change your thinking, you're going to be able to change your life. And when you change your life, other people will notice, and then they'll want to, what are you doing? And it's domino effect. And matter of fact, these articles that appear in the Madera Tribune each week has been responsible for about 5 or 6 new members in our church.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Because they wanted to meet the fellow that writes these articles, which is no big deal, but they want to know, where's this guy coming from with these ideas here? So, you know, it's been probably this type of thinking has been my way of thinking ever since the early 60s. I was a heavy equipment mechanic, and there was a lot of times, a lot of jobs that it really, really took some concentration to diagnose the trouble and repair it. And in between the weekends and so on, I was a workaholic. And I had some free time, so I went to classes and studied and got my real estate license. And I sold real estate at evenings and weekends when I wasn't working construction work. And the sales manager told us about some books that he wanted us to read, and that was Napoleon Hill.
Okay.
Think and Grow Rich. I bought his books and I read them, and I applied that technique of just getting quiet and thinking on a lot of the problems that I encountered on my job. And the answers always come through.
Yes, it does.
I always got the answer to whatever it might have been. And I probably, until I moved to California, I was in 1979, I used the Napoleon Hill, think about what you're thinking about, and you'll get the answers. And I've used that, and when I found the religious science teaching, hey, this is what it's all about. This is what I've been looking for.
You know, and it is. It's, you know, your story is not unique. And that's the wonderful thing about this philosophy. There are people that show up at our church on a regular basis. They go, oh my gosh, this is what I've been thinking, this is what I've been believing. I didn't realize that there's actually a spiritual center that we can go to, that we can experience this, and we celebrate it. We celebrate our life. We celebrate the universal intelligence, the universal spirit that has created us all and that has provided its good for us. And on that note, we're going to shuffle off to another commercial break, and we'll see you when we come back. Thank you. Well, welcome back to our third segment today. My guests are the Reverends Dr. James and Joanna Fox. And last segment we talked about Reverend Jim's book, but prior to that we've been talking about how the Reverend Joanna had gotten her ministerial license. She'd worked for the minister that had originally founded the center in Madera. And then there's a whole story of how everything just kind of evolved and unfolded that brought you to the ministerial position of your own center. So I'd like for you to share that with our audience today.
When I received my minister's license, there was no church in Madera because it had moved from Madera closer to Fresno. So there was quite a drive for the people in Madera. And the minister that had the church at the time found another place that seemed to, she really felt that it would serve Madera and part of Fresno as well. And so there was a couple of years there where there was no real church there in Madera. I was going to start a church in Merced because I thought that's what we needed to do. But then I received a telephone call from Reverend Marcia, who had moved on and gone to another church. And she said, you know, there is an opening because there's no church in Madera. Why don't you just start it? And so then, in conjunction with that, we had about a dozen people in Madera that came to Jim and I and said, we really would like to have you start the church again in Madera. So that's what happened.
Before you go on, you had people come to you that wanted to experience this teaching locally.
Yes.
Now, over the last several weeks, and I've had various ministers on this show, you know, it's been my heart's desire to promote their centers, because for you that are watching today, there are centers out there, and in the last segment I'll talk about a way to find them. But this is so important. You know, it's good to read the books. You know, and books, if you're out there, and that's fine, but to be able to go and to personally involve yourself in the celebration experience. So Reverend Marcia, she gave you a call and said there's an opening, and so some people approached you, and then what happened?
So 2 weeks later, we had, after all of this happened, 2 weeks later, several of the members who were a part of the ones that came to me said, we found a place where you can rent. We called it in the beginning the Joyful Living Center, and our first congregational meeting, the first two were in the Madera Valley Inn, and after that, a place the divine synchronicity of the universe, the law of attraction, whatever you want to call it. Spirit brought this place that was available. It was already zoned. It was a house zoned for properly for a church, and we moved in, and people started donating chairs and various things for us to sit on.
And about when was that?
That was in 1994.
1994. So that's
Yeah.
been a year or two ago.
Yes.
Okay, so over that couple of years span, how did this unfold?
People just started coming, and they really enjoyed hearing about this teaching that could change lives. Classes, we started teaching classes as well, and we had a youth program, and all kinds of wonderful things happened. And then in the year 2000, another place showed up for us. We had to talk the landlord into letting us use this facility, because he was just going to use it maybe down the road sometime. That was 12 years ago. We are now in Madera, across from the post office on D Street, and we really, and things keep evolving, and then more people would show up, and some of them moved away, but they took the teaching, the philosophy that they had learned, and used that to help their families, and some started study groups, and various things happened. So people take this teaching with them wherever they go. And then in a couple of years ago, Jim and I decided it was time to retire, to bring someone in with some new ideas, and we would support somebody. But all of a sudden, Reverend Steve and Maureen, his wife, showed up at our center. And they were just looking around, thinking about maybe starting something up in North Fork. And they heard, because they didn't know we were, you didn't know it, did you?
No, I didn't.
You didn't
Talk
know
about the synchronicity of the universe.
Right.
You know, putting someone
Yeah.
where they needed to be at the time they needed to be for the whole process to unfold. What a great.
Yeah.
Yes. It was tremendous. When we pulled up that particular Sunday in the parking lot, we got there. Actually, I thought we were going to be late, but we got there a little early. And Jim and Joanna had pulled up, and they got out of the car. And as I'm walking over, Jim reaches out and he grabs my suit and he starts straightening it because it was wrinkled. And we reacquainted ourselves. I thought it was fun, but it was kind of like, welcome home, son.
Exactly.
But before I go into my story, I want to, throughout our show today, you both have shared this concept of classes. Now I know we have classes ongoing at the center right now. Presently, you're teaching a class based on a book written by U.S. Anderson
Yes.
called The Three Magic Words. Tell me a little bit about that class so that people understand what kind of teachings take place in these classes.
Well, this particular class goes through the book. There are 12 chapters, each one building upon the next, so that you can absolutely experience peace, security, prosperity, greater quality of health and well-being. And we have class discussions, we have a chapter to read, then we talk about how it's happening, what's changing in your life by doing a guided meditation or a written meditation that they work with each day for each week. And you find out, there is a presence and a power within. Each person proves it to themselves that power, that presence is within them, and that they can contact and be part of that. And they're guided and directed to greater experiences in their life. And so these are things that they're sharing, and they're becoming more aware of the power and the presence of spirit within them. And that power and presence, their awareness grows.
Last year I had the opportunity to take a class that Reverend Jim taught. It's called the 4 T's program by Reverend Stretton Smith.
Right.
And
yes.
I know that was not your first time to teach that class. And it's a very profound class for people that are looking to create prosperity in their lives. Share with us a little bit, Jim, about that, if you would.
Well, the first time that I had any experience or was introduced to the 4T prosperity program, I just thought it was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing that someone could sit down and work out all of the ideas to where they would all gel together to form a consciousness that would bring you prosperity and so on. And that's what the whole class is about, is changing your consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we do have a lot of habits, and some of them aren't so good habits. This is something that will help anyone overcome, get above all of that.
All that stuff, huh?
All that stuff. And when they apply this 4T prosperity program to their life, step by step by step, the way Stretton Smith has laid it out, you can't help but change consciousness if you're serious.
Mm-hmm.
That's the part that I like about the religious science, or the science of mind that Ernest Holmes wrote, is no one can do it for you.
Right.
Yep.
You have to do it yourself. We can furnish you the tools, show you how to use the tools, but it's your consciousness that you're dealing with.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you have to change it yourself, because nobody can do it for you.
That is so true. You know, you were talking about Napoleon Hill. You know, Wayne Dyer's got a new book out that is titled Wishes Fulfilled. You know, there's a lot of programs by Deepak Chopra. The 4T program is not the only prosperity program that's out there. There's a lot of good programs out there, and you can attend most any New Thought Center, and they will have a whole plethora of classes available to you. But the thing is, you can go to all the classes you want until you
Apply.
apply it, until you
Right.
put it into practice for yourself. You know, we say change your thinking, change your life. And oftentimes we get people that come in, they go, well, if I can just change their thinking, it will
Yeah.
change
Yeah.
my life.
It doesn't work.
But it doesn't work that
No.
way.
It doesn't
Yeah.
work
You
that
know.
way.
And so it's a great deal. I also teach at our center. Most of the classes I teach are fundamental science of mind type classes, but we have a whole group of classes. We're going to take a commercial break before we head into our final segment, so we'll see you on the flip side, as my daughter says. Well, welcome back to our fourth and final segment. My guests today are the Reverend Dr. Jim and Joanna Fox. And so through the show, we've kind of shared some of our history at the center. And our last segment, Joanna was telling us about how my wife and I showed up there one Sunday, and you know, we did. We came to the center, and it was our intention. I felt passionately about creating a center up in North Fork. It is my desire to really promote this philosophy because I believe that it's so empowering. And I showed up, and they welcomed us that day, and boy, what a great, loving center they had husband and, you know, and taken care of over this period of time. And at some time during the day, they said, well, you know, we're looking to retire. And I thought, well, isn't that interesting?
Yes.
And so I called back and spoke to, I believe it was to you, Jim,
Yes.
and I said I would like to be considered for candidating for the center. And I know at that time there was a couple of people that had applied. You know, everything works in divine right order. They disappeared. They just fell off the map. And I came down there, and we have experienced such a wonderful growth and a continuation of those things that you folks started, and you have been, and I want to publicly on air thank you for the support that you have provided for me, the leadership and the mentoring that has been in place for me, because although I may look like a young spring chicken, I've got a few years on me, but this is my first ministry, and so it was stepping out in faith, and you two have been there for me, and what a great opportunity that you've provided for me.
Well, you know, Reverend Steve, I think it was what, June that you showed up,
May.
something like that? May?
May, yeah.
May. And we had already set our date for retiring at the end of September.
Mm-hmm.
And you and Maureen showed up several Sundays before that. Then we had you do a talk and so on. And people said, wow, yes, you know, that's good. So they accepted you right away. But the part that I really liked was the end of September that we set the date. And the last Sunday that I was there, now I don't have to make coffee. I don't have to clean the restrooms. Because we've turned that over to a new line of talent.
Yeah, well, okay. On that note, it has been, we have continued to grow. I've had great support,
Yes.
and I thank you so much. And I thank you for being on the show today.
Oh, yes,
And
it's been
we'll
wonderful.
see you tomorrow. I need
yes.
coffee at 9:30. Very good. All right, thank you very much. All right, for the final few minutes, I want to remind everybody, because I know that there are people that are watching that are not here local to the Madera, Fresno, Central California area, that you can find a center by going to findacenter.com or .org. Excuse me, it's findacenter.org. I believe it's on the banner down below me on the screen. And you can find your nearest center where you can go and make your connection with a New Thought community. And although I do religious science, I am a science of mind minister. There is many different philosophies that are they fall under many different names: Unity, Divine Science, Home of Truth, many different centers that still teach the same thing. And I want to encourage you to go and to seek one out. And also, we have an online resource that is newthoughtlibrary.com. You can go there. You can find books that were written by many of the pioneers in the New Thought teaching. We call it New Thought, Ancient Wisdom, because it really is teachings that span way back in time. And so, as we come to our last final segments, I want to remind everybody that you can help support us by going to the link on the webpage for Central Valley Talk, or you can go to our center, and we have a link that you can go to make a PayPal donation. And either one, when you make your donation, please make a note on the donation that it is for the New Thought Talk program, and we will apply it accordingly. Once again, I want to remind you, Reverend Jim's book, And So It Is, you can get that through our center. You can get it through the DeVos Publishing Company. You can get it through poeticmatrixexpress.com, and it's a worthy read. So as we close out, I want to tell you that I have enjoyed today. I've enjoyed my guest, and may the light of God surround you. May the love of God enfold you. May the power of God protect you. And the presence of God watch over you. For truly, wherever you are, God is, and all is well. Thank you, and make it a great week.